Good morning. Wow, what's a Fabrenga without a L'chaim? L'chaim. First story here, Chaim Ephraim was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov through the daughter Odel. There was once in Mezhebush a Yid Rebbe Hanogid, and he didn't like the Baal Shem Tov. He was a Misnagid. He didn't believe in the Baal Shem Tov. Came one night, Pesach, he was a rich man, and the Galach, favorite pastime in Europe, was a blood libel. So nothing exciting in Mezhebush for a couple of years, no Jewish blood spilled, no extra money, no extra income, time to make a pogrom. How do you do that? You start with a blood libel. So it's not hard to get one guy to hack another guy, slice his head off. Then you got two goyim to slip the body into the basement of Leblipa. So it was the night of Pesach, and they ran out of wine, and the Leblipa's wife goes down to the basement to get some more wine. And what does she see? She sees a body, and it's a fresh body, dead. She realized that there was only a question of time before the police are going to show up. It's going to be blood libel, the Yidden are going to be killed. She ran upstairs to her husband. She said, Lipa, get up. You must run to Baal Shem Tov now. He said, what's the matter? He says, there's a dead body, a goy in the basement. Run. Baal Shem Tov, I'm never going to go to the Baal Shem Tov. She said, listen, Lipa, you have a few minutes. You're going to be dead, and the goyim are going to shecht all our children. Go. He went. Come to the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov was in the middle of doing the Seder. He didn't even look up. He just gave him the stick that he was holding, and he told him, give it to the goy, tell him to come here. Takes the stick to the Baal Shem Tov. He walks down to his... The police did show up in Lipa's house and said, we heard that, the matzah, they came running down the bay. There's nobody there. The Galach is following. They don't believe what happened. They said, go to the rabbi's house. It's probably in the rabbi's house. Baal Shem Tov said to the police, come in, check my entire house. You know a blood libel is false. They looked, and the guy is sitting there and shaking. Waste your time. Another story says, Rebbe Yitzchak Yehudi Yechiel, he heard this from Rebbe Yechiel Michel of Zlotchev, the Talmud of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov used to learn with Achi HaSheloini. We know this from the Alter Rebbe, that the main teacher of the Baal Shem Tov is Achi HaSheloini, the same teacher of David HaMelech. Obviously, he's coming back from 2,500 years in history. He lived in Shiloh. Achi HaSheloini used to learn with the Baal Shem Tov all the time. Once the Baal Shem Tov had a kasha, and Achi HaSheloini did not know the answer. So they said, we're going to call the Sara Torah, we're going to call the angel in heaven who's called Sara Torah. Good idea. Mistake. They called the Sar Shel Eish, the Malach of fire. And the Malach of fire comes in, that was it. Poof. A fire came out of the Malach. It burnt the Baal Shem Tov's home, and from there went quickly and burnt down a big part of the city. The Goyim were very angry. They knew the fire came from the Baal Shem Tov's house, and Baal Shem Tov was in danger. So Baal Shem Tov ran away. He came to the river, the Dnester. What should he do? And Goyim were chasing after him. So he took his jacket, he put it onto the river, he stood on his jacket, and he started to float. And he went, and he sped to the other end, and that was it. He was safe. So said Rebbe Yechiel Michel of Zlotchev, don't think that he did it with a Shem Kodesh. He said it as Eibishter's name, Chas v'Shalom, that he would do such a thing. He was saved because he had Amunah and Betochen the Eibishter. With the full Betochen, the Eibishter will save his life, and that's why it worked. So now you understand, when the Alter Rebbe was accused, they said, why didn't you just burn the whole Peterburg with putting your hand over your forehead, or by smoking? The Alter Rebbe didn't say, well, how do you do it? Why don't you do that trick? Teach me how to do it. The Alter Rebbe didn't say, sorry, that doesn't work. That's not what the Alter Rebbe said. The Alter Rebbe didn't, he knew he could do it. But the Alter Rebbe answered. What was the answer? The answer was that Yaakov Avinu could also do it, and he didn't do it. Okay, great. So, Frega Yida Kasha, so he throws back the Kasha. So what's the answer? So why didn't Yaakov Avinu do it? We have a whole parsha where Yaakov Avinu is terrified of Esav, and he tries to appease him, and finally he appeases him. Well, just put your hand over your forehead and burn up the whole Har Seir. There's a beautiful Fabrengen from the Rebbe, Yud Tes Kislev, Tavshin Chav Dalet. The Rebbe gives two answers. First, the Rebbe says there is a story of the Alter Rebbe and the ship. The Alter Rebbe wanted to do Kiddush Levana. They didn't want to stop the ship. The Alter Rebbe wanted to say with Kavana. To say with Kavana, they have to stop. The reason he was on a ship is because the Alter Rebbe's jail was in an island. You go today to Petersburg, the jail is still there. It's on an island. It's fascinating to. It's a very short boat ride, but it's right across of the Hermitage, which is the winter palace of the czars, and that they would take people that they would investigate, and they would want to torture them at the middle of the day. To wake them up middle of the night, interrogate them middle of the night. The people in this jail were not ordinary crooks. This was reserved for, extraordinary crooks. It's people that the Tsar didn't like. There is a museum today at the site of this jail, because very famous personalities were in that jail and executed there. And they have a museum with wax, wax people, and they have I think about 20 personalities. One of them is the Alter Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe happened to be on the ship in the middle of the night. He wanted to be Mekadesh the Levana because he didn't do so that month, and he asked they should stop the boat. Didn't want to stop the boat. The Alter Rebbe miraculously made it should stop, and then he allowed them to move again, and then asked they should please stop the boat. Whatever the story was, they listened to the Alter Rebbe because they saw they couldn't argue with him. But the Rebbe says that the Chassidim asked, "What's the pshat? If the Alter Rebbe could stop the boat on his own, why does he have to ask them for a favor to stop it? You stopped it. Say Kiddush Levana now. So why did you stop it? Then let it go and show them that you have the power." And then they agreed. The Chassidim said because a mitzvah has to be done in teva, in nature. So same thing here. Maybe because the Gula has to be in a way of teva. It has to go through channels of nature, not miraculously. And the Rebbe says still this pshat is lacking because a mitzvah has to be done in teva. There is a beautiful, beautiful pshat from the Tzemach Tzedek. We're coming to Chanukah now. There's the days of the Tzemach Tzedek traveled to Vilna to make shalom with Misnagdim. The days of the Tzemach Tzedek was remarkable. There are accounts from the son of the Aruch HaShulchan and other great people that told about the historic trip that the Tzemach Tzedek took to Vilna. He was going back from Petersburg. He stopped in Vilna, and the whole city came out to greet him, and it was incredible. They said that the Vilna never saw such a thing before and after. And all the G'dolei Yisrael came to visit Tzemach Tzedek, and that thawed the ice between Chassid and Misnagdim, and after that it was peaceful. The Rebbe says that today, if you find Misnagdim, that's just kina v'sina, it's just jealousy. It's not, because already G'dolei Yisrael in Vilna in the time of Tzemach Tzedek, it was very b'sholem with the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek was able to patch up all the machloikas. But the Tzemach Tzedek, there's one of the stories that are told that the Dayan of Avram Abela, who was a Dayan yet in the days of the Gra, when they signed the Chedim against the Chassidim, asked the Tzemach Tzedek the famous question that the Beis Yosef asks in the beginning of Hilchas Chanukah and Siman Tov Reish Ayin: why is Chanukah a miracle of 8 days? L'chayda, it's a miracle only of 7 days. They found one jug of oil that was enough for 1 day, and it lit for 8 days. So l'chayda, there was a miracle only for 7 days. It was not an 8-day miracle; it's a 7-day miracle. So the Tzemach Tzedek answered, "Azoy, alumdus. It says that you have to have for a menorah shemen zayis, olive oil, not miracle, not miraculous oil. It has to be shemen zayis, olive oil. So l'chayda, the miracle didn't help them. If they had miraculous oil, it didn't. The first day they used the natural oil, and for 7 days they used miraculous oil. So the 7 days it's not kosher. It has to be shemen zayis." So the Tzemach Tzedek answers, Muzman Zogan, that the Eibishter made a miracle in the quality of the oil, not in the quantity, that it became a very strong type of oil, and therefore even the first day, only a little part of the oil was used up, and even the first day there was already a miracle. There is a delicious reshimus from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe has a whole arichas on this. What's fascinating is, this same answer, this same lamdas is said in all the yeshivas in the name of Reb Chaim Brisker, and the Chassidish Welt, they say the same thing from the name of the first Gerer Rebbe, the Chidush Eirim. But what we see from this is that a mitzvah has to be done with natural oil, with shemen zayis, not miraculous oil. But that's a mitzvah. But here, his life is in danger, and he has the power to save himself, why wouldn't he accomplish it through a miracle? The Geula should come through a miracle. So here is the point that the Rebbe says. The Nakuda is that there are two ways to affect the world. You can burn the world, or you could change the world. The Alter Rebbe knew the trick of how to burn the world. But that's not Dira B'Tachtonim. That's not a dwelling place in this world, because you burnt the world. You have to change the world the way it is. The goy, this is what Yaakov Avinu said. I'm sure I could burn Esav. I could put my hand over my forehead and burn the whole Ha'aseyir. But that's not a kunz. What did that accomplish? That's not remarkable at all. It looks remarkable. The fireworks are great. But what did that do? It didn't change how to say it. It burnt how to say it. I didn't bring Kedusha and how to say it. The Kedusha burnt how to say it. I want to change Esav. This Esav who hates Yaakov Avinu with his whole heart, all of a sudden kisses Yaakov Avinu with his whole heart. That doesn't happen automatically. It's very hard. It takes step by step, and you have to think about it. You have to get into Esav Arosha's head, how to appease him. But that is what the Eibishter wants. The same thing said the Alter Rebbe to the Baruch. True, your Zayda did some miraculous things. It was necessary. But that's not the tachlis of Chassidus, to burn this world, to change the world from the inside, in a pneumius, in an internal way, not superimpose somewhere on the outside, moves things. The Goy itself should agree that the Alter Rebbe is correct and the Alter Rebbe is right. To go to the interrogations and to explain himself until they themselves freed him. The Rebbe says that's a pshat, a pod of bishalom nafshi. There could be a pediyah redemption, a geula through Melchama, through a war, and this was a pediyah bishalom. Why was it bishalom? Because the enemy became a friend. My Zayda told me once a story. My Zayda was born in Lubavitch, so he's not a young man now. He was born over 100 years ago in Lubavitch. He was a mashpia for many years in the Torah, and he said he heard from his father that the Alter Rebbe went on that trip to appease the Baruch of Mezhebush, who had tinus the Alter Rebbe. On the way, he met an old Yid. The old Yid came over to the Alter Rebbe and he said, "I hear you're going to debate the Baruch. The Baruch, you're going to talk to the Baruch. I want to tell you a story. I remember at Kiddush Levana, again a Kiddush Levana story, and the Baruch was then a baby. He wasn't yet 3 years old. And the Baal Shem Tov picked him up, was holding him in his hands, and he pointed to the Levana and he said, "Nu Baruch Zah Kiddush Levana." And the boy said the entire Kiddush Levana. A baby. Now you're going to argue with this Heilige Tzaddik? The Alter Rebbe smiled. Alter Rebbe said, "You know what? If the Baal Shem Tov wollte aufgehebt Natzig, wollte echt gesagt Kiddush Levana. If the Baal Shem Tov picked up a goat and pointed to the moon and told the goat to say Kiddush Levana, the goat would also say Kiddush Levana." Parenthetically, the Mashpim used to say in Lubavitch that the tzigin in Lubavitch are meichad gesehen the Rebbe. Goats in Lubavitch also saw the Rebbe. What's the difference between us and the goat? The difference, there has to be a difference here. So I think the very important takeaway from this sicha is like this. There's a little bit of a quirky story, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the Shmuel Kunda tapes, the story with Hananya Lam Tevlippe and his magic yarmulke. So I don't know about you. I always feel like I wish I had that magic yarmulke. I wish I could, take this little stick and put it in my head. The Gemara is Dorten. I have a dozen shurim to give a week. A machaya. I have to sweat and prepare a shir, and people have questions. I don't know the answer. I have to look into it. And who has a cheshik every day to fight, to start learning? Naturally, it's a lernen sich nicht. Like the stone goes, es sich, trinken, trinkt sich. Davenen, se daven sich nicht. Lernen, se lernen sich nicht. You have to, when you learn, you enjoy it. But to get the motor started, it's difficult. If we can just have the magic yarmulke, the machaya, we know how to learn. We have a geschmack in Niglak, a geschmack in Chassidus. That would be great. The answer, the Alter Rebbe, so we say, well, we don't have. We have to deal with what we have. We don't have the magic yarmulke. It only exists in Shmuel Kunda's tape. Chananya Yom Tev Lippe, but not for me and you. But say it theoretically, if it was available for me and you to get that magic yarmulke, and we can put it on, and that's it. The whole shas is there, clear. and everything is, and we have a geschmack in learning, and a maimed is straight. Wouldn't that be great? Says the Alter Rebbe, no, that would not be great. That would be terrible. That would overwhelm my nefesh, my soul. It would be overwhelming. It wouldn't be me. I wasn't changed. It would be something from the outside. Just like the world. The world has to be changed from the inside. Also, I have to be changed from the inside. The Alter Rebbe once had a good friend. They say it was Rebbe Yitzchak came to visit him. And when they went into the Beis Medrash, he was bragging to the Alter Rebbe, I have a talmid who has Gili Eliyahu Novi. The Alter Rebbe said, you see right there, that fellow was at a Binyamin Kletzker. And it was late in the day. And he was davening. And he was in Shemona Esrei. He was holding by Sim Shalom. He says, "V'halt by Sim Shalom, und se leicht bei the Gilui von the Yechida in seine Neshama." In him right now is shining the Yechida of his Neshama. So one way to learn the story is that Yechida of our Neshama is greater than Eliyahu Novi. That's probably true. But another thing in the story is that who cares about Eliyahu? It's great. Tonight, Eliyahu Novi will come and teach you Torah. Amazing. But how are you changed by that? The Alter Rebbe said, I'll tell you what I celebrate, what is remarkable to me, what is amazing to me, that Rebbe Binyamin Kletzker is a businessman, he has so much going on, and he can put everything out of his mind, push it out, and all of a sudden dig into himself to find the Gila Yechida of his Neshama. That's something, there's no trick. You can't put your hand over your forehead for it. You can't smoke a pipe for that, a cigar. No tricks where you can't put a cloth under the nester. It doesn't work. That takes a lot of work. To change the nature of the world, to change the nature of our own Nefesh HaBahamis, naturally our Nefesh HaBahamis does not want to learn. That's the fact. Why is it that we are zoche to get the whole Torah taught to us and then we forget it? Why shouldn't we remember it? Why does the Rebbe have to be so cruel to us? We learned the whole Torah, now we're going to spend another 80 years sitting here. And this classroom is great. But as great as it is, wouldn't it be Abachaya if we didn't have to sit here? The Torah was already there in our mind. But that's not what the Rebbe Shalom wanted. The Rebbe Shalom wanted we should forget the Torah, and it should be difficult, and there should be distractions, all kinds of distractions, from the inside, from the outside. And we should break through the distractions, and we should learn and teach ourselves from the inside. It's at this point in life, you're at a very critical point. If you're learning now is the time that you're starting to learn Gemara, you're starting to learn Chassidus. It's so hard to teach yourself, to spend time with a chavrusa, and to figure out how to learn Gemara on your own. Especially today, you have, Baruch Hashem, you have a great Magid Shir that's teaching it to you and feeding it to you. And it's machaya. But the kunz, what is really remarkable is to take the time to spend time with a chavrusa, and it's so hard. But to figure out how, it's easier to learn Mandarin than to learn Gemara. That's the truth. That's the truth. But this is really what's demanded of us. And the same thing when it comes to learning Chassidus. It's easier to shuckle, to hear a few words, but to try to analyze the Maimah. So what was the question, and what's the answer, and what's the logic, and what does that mean to me? It's not easy. But that is what a chassid is. That is the accomplishment of a chassid. That's the remarkable story of Yud Tes Kislev. The Alter Rebbe could have put his hand over his forehead and burned the whole Peterburg. He said, no. Could you imagine if he did that? Till today, it would be in the history books in the entire world. It would be great. That's what the Baruch said. You want Gilui Elokus? You want to teach Chassidus? Who needs your Tanya? Burn the whole Peterburg. Till today, it would be in the history books. They took a grand rabbi, they shackled him, they brought him in a black cage to the capital of Russia. He went like this, and the whole city went up in flames. Till today, people would talk about it. Alter Rebbe said, yeah, that's a Gilui Elokus. He didn't argue that this is not he didn't say this is not a mahalach. I don't know how to do it. I know how to do it. This is a mahalach too. But that's not what we celebrate. I'm going to let myself be in jail. I'm going to explain myself to the goyim. I'm going to change their mind, and they're going to let me out free. And they're going to agree that my derech is the right derech. And the same thing in our everyday avodas Hashem with our own little goy that's in us. That is what makes a chassid. It's painstakingly, it takes a lot of steps, but that's what makes us a chassid. The Rebbe will help that all of us, whether you're here right now with us in New York, if you're in LA, if you're in Miami, Pittsburgh, Chicago, wherever you are, all the chassidim are now ein mishpoche. The Rebbe will help that this sicha of Yud Tes Kislev, Tavshin Chav Daled, the way that Rebbe learns this remarkable story of the Alter Rebbe, that not to burn the world, to change the world, that we should change ourselves, and we should change the world, and we should bring the Geula, a mitzvah, shleima, yedei Mashiach Tzidkeinu.